Hey everyone, Sarah Oakley here, co-founder of Soul and Wonder, personal development coach and intuitive guide, and I am here to help you take one step closer to living a stress-free, happy life with this video and workbook on why anxiety is actually your best friend and 5 steps to use it to your advantage and other secrets to living that stress-free, happy life that we all deserve. So the goal here is to share my personal and professional experience on how your anxiety actually is your best friend. It's trying to help you, right? Not hurt you. And I'm here to give you the 5 steps to use it to your advantage to provide opportunity for clarity, resulting in not only transformation, but long-lasting happiness as well. So to get started with this, I want to give you a quick background on my story. So 10 years ago while I was in college, my heart was shattered after a string of emotionally abusive relationships involving drug addiction. It was a really difficult time in my life. I was super depressed. I had so much anxiety that I often even struggled to get out of bed and go to class. Now, I was so angry at the world and angry at a so-called God that would allow so much pain. I lived 2 separate lives most of the time. One where I pretended to be happy by smiling and laughing all the time, but I was masking my pain with a lot of really unhealthy habits like binge drinking, lots of junk food, and hopping from one casual relationship to the next. I was completely lost. Like, I did not want that life. I wanted true joy. I wanted lasting happiness. And I just wanted to live a life free of anxiety, stress, and all that darkness that came along with it. Honestly, I just wanted to know that I was good enough. And I wanted to actually believe it. I wanted to know that I could be loved and that I could love again. I wanted to feel like my life was worth living. The problem was that I'd been doing what a lot of us do, right? I got caught in the self-help trap where I read a bunch of books as quickly as possible without ever doing the actual work. I was learning all the coping mechanisms and positive affirmations, but I felt like I was just tricking myself into happiness and nothing was changing. I was still the same depressed and anxious person, only now I was a depressed and anxious person with a lot of knowledge and no application of that knowledge. And so I realized that if I was going to make a change in my happiness, then I needed to make a change in my life. I needed to leave my comfort zone. So I joined the Peace Corps and I volunteered overseas in Africa as an English teacher. Now, when I got to my site in Namibia, I had a plan to get happy. As simple as that. I did a lot of yoga, I practiced mindfulness, I kept reading inspirational books, I hung out with all the villagers and connected with the school I was working at. I made a lot of really awesome friends with pretty deep connections right off the bat. Then one night, my world turned upside down when I was attacked and sexually assaulted by a group of young men in the town nearest to my village. During that attack, where I almost lost my life, I heard this universal voice just telling me that I was supposed to make a difference. I was supposed to help people. And this reawakening to my purpose, it was like, that's what pulled me through the attack. That's what helped me to survive, this remembering. And I was so lucky to be alive, no doubt, but I had a lot of regret. I realized that I had been living my life just wandering without direction, never quite getting to the depths of my potential. And, I knew now that I was supposed to make a difference, but if I was going to make a difference and make this life worth living, then I needed to cut the bullshit. Get underneath the surface of all the work I'd been doing on myself and go into the parts of me that I was honestly too afraid to explore previously. So for the first time in my life, I built up the courage to face that pain by walking right into it. And the next 2 years of my life was spent rewriting old stories into new empowering beliefs and action. On top of the stuff I'd already learned about presence and mindfulness, I learned how to use my shadow to my advantage. Now, the shadow is kind of like a rebellious teenager fighting for your attention by acting up, and it doesn't really calm down until you give it the attention that it's looking for. And I learned how to use my negative self-talk, anxiety, and fear as a guide to the places that needed healing, instead of running away from it with false positivity and fingers crossed that it'll be okay. I learned and I developed tools to transform judgment and distress into light by leaning into it, not sweeping it under the rug. And the 2 years after that, I finally started helping people do the exact same thing I did and continue to do. Basically, walk straight into that darkness with a flashlight and a peace offering. So, here I am with you today, and we're going to do the damn thing, and we're going to get you one step closer to living a stress-free, happy life by learning my 5-step method to use anxiety or any other negative or intense emotion to your advantage in the moment that it's happening. So be sure to take notes and have that workbook handy for reflection. The great thing is that the workbook can be pulled up on your computer through a PDF reader like Adobe Acrobat, and you can type your answers right on the workbook and save your results so that you don't lose them. So let's get into it. Anxiety. This is hands down the most common struggle among my one-on-one clients, and it comes in so many different forms. Now, just to say this up front, it is not my job to diagnose, treat, or cure. I am not a therapist. I'm not a psychiatrist. My job is to help people get clear, get curious, get unstuck out of their way to align with their preferred life on a holistic level. So my disclaimer here also is that I'm not undermining debilitating anxiety at all. Like, some of us have it really, really bad. Like you've heard in my story, I've been there. I mean, when I said that some days I couldn't even get out of bed to go to class, like, I'm not joking. It was really intense. Some days in my village, even when I was in Africa, when I went back to Africa to finish my service, some days, even though I had like no food in my house, sometimes I would choose to just stay at home because I was too anxious and nervous to walk down to the end of my street, to get on a bus, to go to the town to get food. So I would end up just getting like bread in the village and eating that. So I get it. It can be really intense. So, whether you experience social anxiety, situational anxiety, anxiety related to post-traumatic stress, anxiety without seemingly any cause, this method can help you not only cope in the moment, but also guide you to the deeper places that might need attention. And now, I'm not saying that this is going to work every single time for everybody. We're all at different points in our journey, but what do you have to lose? You might as well give it a shot. And if you're someone who is seeking therapy for some pretty intense anxiety, by all means, if you feel a lot more comfortable, I recommend doing this method with your therapist so that you are not just by yourself trying to do this on your own. So I'm just sharing with you what's worked for me and what has worked for my clients. Now, as you might have guessed, I have an unpopular opinion. Through my years as a coach, I have come to rather unpopular conclusions about anxiety. That anxiety is actually our best friend, not the enemy. In fact, it's our saving grace. Now, some of you might be like, yeah, right, anxiety sucks. Just hear me out and bear with me, okay? So before we get into the 5 steps, let's set the stage a minute. Our body is a community comprised of messengers, and these messengers essentially are fragments of our consciousness that manifest as character traits, emotions, and physical symptoms. So, our messengers work together holistically as our internal community to signal when something is wrong or off balance. The problem is that we're not listening to our body and we think that something is just wrong with us. So, we mask the root problem with pills, recreational drugs, junk foods, even spiritual bypassing. I mean, the list is endless. Now, anxiety is actually one of the many messengers of our body's internal community, and it's delivering or trying to deliver us some very important information about the state of our internal community and our external conditions. The problem is we condemn it. We shoot the messenger and we run to fix it. We do everything in our power to avoid feeling the anxiety. Now, the solution that I have found that works with myself and every single person I've ever worked with is to open space to receive the message, to detect the root cause, and to be honest about the root cause. That's huge. You got to be honest about what's off balance. This opens space for healing, but you have to do the digging and then you have to do the changing. So, I want to give you kind of a messenger example. I actually met a girl who suffers from pretty severe anxiety, very, very badly. And she noticed one of her triggers is refined sugar. So when she eats refined sugar, or if she eats junk food, or she drinks alcohol, or if she doesn't get any sleep, anything directly related to her physical health, it triggers a pretty bad episode of anxiety. So in the old way, we would shame the anxiety and say, oh no, I feel like shit, like I don't want to feel like this, let's try to fix it. But the new way that I'm trying to show you is to say, okay, what have I done or did or am doing that might be triggering these symptoms? And it doesn't mean you're blaming yourself, you're just taking note and observing your life. Because the anxiety is trying to tell you, hey, don't do it. Don't eat the refined sugar. Don't eat all that junk food. Don't drink. Don't not sleep. Because then I have to be triggered and wave this red flag, and then you get mad at me and shoot me for it. That was anxiety talking. And the only way to get your attention is by it getting worse until you finally listen. Now, I'm not claiming to have all of the answers, but what have you got to lose to hear this out? All right. So another messenger example is when anxiety shows up when we're creating a reality in alignment with old false beliefs and not in alignment with our core essence, our true self. For example, you might be thinking on a subconscious or unconscious level that I'm not good enough, I'm worthless, I'm not deserving, I'm unsafe. I mean, the list could go on forever. Whether you're aware of it or not, those beliefs could exist within you. And anxiety is acting up to try to show you those limiting beliefs that need resolution, because operating from that state of belief is holding you back from your true essence. And anxiety doesn't want you to be held back from your true essence. It's simply trying to show you those old limiting beliefs to give you the opportunity for you to eradicate them. So essentially, it's trying to get you to ask yourself, what does my anxiety have to tell me about my internal condition and beliefs? An example is that I struggled with the belief of I'm not good enough. Now, on my conscious waking mind, I would have said, well, that's absurd. Of course I'm good enough. We're all good enough. We're all amazing, beautiful creatures. But I had an old limiting belief from a long, long, long time ago that I had created due to some experience, and I started telling myself a story that I wasn't good enough. But it was so long ago that I don't remember. Things have changed. I've tricked myself into thinking that I believe that I'm good enough, thus sweeping the old belief under the rug, but it's still there. And the anxiety in me was trying to point out that area in my life where it was still a reflection of that old belief of I'm not good enough. So Anxiety is just pointing out the areas in your external reality that are a reflection of your internal limiting beliefs. And it's trying to guide you to the places that need healing so that you can live stress-free and happy. So that's kind of a way to set the stage. Now we can finally get into the 5 steps to use anxiety or any other negative emotion in the moment to your advantage and heal. Okay? Now, I'm technically not supposed to use the word heal because I am just a coach and not a therapist or a doctor. I'm not even sure if they can make claims that you can heal. So I just hope that you know that I'm just trying to provide you a new opportunity to break and shift your old paradigms and move into a space of new paradigms. So, step number 1, tune into the present moment. It's that simple. Step number 1, tune into the present moment. Get to know your anxiety, the way it shows up in your breathing. Is it short and choppy? Is it fast? Do you hold your breath? What sensations do you notice in your body? Are you tense? Are you overly relaxed where you can't even move? How does it feel? What emotions are running through you when you're in this state of anxiety? How does your energy feel? Is it electric? Is it fiery? What are the indicators? So knowing the indicators of your stress and anxiety is really important because this gives you awareness, okay? Awareness is key for the beginning stages of transformation. Now, step number 2, talk to your anxiety like it's your best friend. Have a conversation with it. But most importantly, let it talk to you. Ask it questions. Listen to its message. What are you here to tell me about myself? Anxiety? Oh, hey, anxiety, what's up? You've shown up again. What's going on? This creates a loving space with no judgment so that your anxiety part of you will feel comfortable speaking. And it puts you in a calmer state where you're actually able to receive the message. So you gotta listen to the message. And you have to be honest with yourself, even when the message that you get is not what you wanna hear. Now, step number 3, identify the fear and unmet needs. What is it that you're afraid of? In that moment, what is it that you're afraid of? Be honest. It's okay to feel fear. The only way to let it come up and out and transform is to bring it to light. So using honesty in this moment is crucial. What are you afraid of? What needs are going unmet? Is it safety? Is it security? Is it comfort? Is it love, compassion? What needs do you have? And how can you meet those needs yourself? First and foremost, you gotta accept the fact that you might have needs, and that's okay. You don't have to feel bad for having needs. And then when you're aware of them, what can you do to meet them? In fact, you can make it fun. Step number 4, identify the limiting belief. All fear comes from limiting beliefs. We always have a belief that creates our thoughts and our emotions. So when you're feeling fear, you better bet there's a limiting belief behind the curtain. Now, this takes a little digging, sometimes a little imagining, but I want to ask you to ask yourself, when you're feeling this anxiety, when you're feeling this fear that you uncovered in the step above, ask yourself, well, what would I have to believe about myself to be feeling this fear? What would I have to believe about myself to be feeling this way? You know, for example, maybe you've got a job interview and you are stressed to the max. Your palms are sweaty. You're just like feeling like you're going to throw up. It's an outrageous amount of anxiety and stress. You're afraid that you're going to bomb the interview. You're afraid that you're just going to look like a complete fool and that as soon as you walk out of the door, they're all going to be laughing behind your back saying, look at this jokester. Now, it's okay to have that fear. Nobody's telling you it's wrong to have that fear. Embrace it. Now then you might want to ask yourself, well, what would I have to believe about myself to be feeling like I am just going to completely bomb and that these people are not going to give me the job and they're going to talk about me and I'm going to look like an idiot? What would you have to believe about yourself to be feeling that way? The list could be infinite, but for example, your beliefs might be, well, I'm not capable, or I'm not worthy of success, Perhaps you might be believing I'm stupid or incompetent. Now, sure, this is your conscious mind might argue with you, well, of course I'm capable because I've done XYZ. Of course I'm worthy of success because we all are. And of course I'm not stupid and incompetent because I've done XYZ. Like, obviously, but that's why limiting beliefs are behind your conscious awareness. So you might have to imagine, what would you have to believe about yourself if you're having a hard time digging it up, and kind of sift through those beliefs until you find the one where you're like, okay, there's a chance. I got to admit that limiting belief probably is in me at some level, some degree. So now step number 5, once you have found that old limiting belief, replace it. Replace the old belief with a new one and act on it. So I'm not going to go into huge amount of detail on how to transmute the limiting beliefs because it is in your workbook. But ideally, you want to pinpoint the source. You want to find the irrationality also. Like, is it true? You want to assess the readiness to release this limiting belief. And then you want to replace with a new empowering belief by honoring where you're at and helping you to move forward. So for example, if my limiting belief is I'm not worthy of happiness, I might shift that. And well, first I want to look back in time, like, okay, when was the point in time that I created the story that I'm not worthy of happiness? Who taught it to me? What taught it to me? Where did I pick it up? Then I want to find, like, how is it irrational? How is it not true? And then I want to assess my readiness to release it and then replace it with a new empowering belief. So I might say my new empowering belief is happiness is a birthright and I have every right to be happy just like anyone else. Now, if when you say your new empowering belief and it just doesn't feel right to you, it feels kind of like a lie, that's a good sign that you're not honoring where you're at. So to shift the language to honor where I'm at, I might say, happiness is a birthright of which I am learning to claim every day. I am learning to. I am discovering. I am exploring. I am uncovering, okay? Using that language will help it. Now, most importantly, you've got to act on it. Once you have that new belief, you've got to act on it, make it real, show yourself that it's true. And the more you act on it and make it real, the better it gets. Now, it takes courage, perseverance, and honesty to use anxiety as an opportunity to find the root no matter the situation. But what about, some of you might be thinking, okay, Sarah, but what about anxiety that just doesn't have any cause? Like, I have a family, I have a job that pays well, and a loving spouse. I should be happy, but I'm not. Please don't. I'm not pointing fingers. I am not putting blanket statement on everyone, but I don't believe it for 1 second. Everything is great according to whose standards? You're saying you have all this stuff and you should be happy, but everything is great according to whose standards? Something is off. If you're being triggered, something is off. Are you living 100% in alignment with your core values? Does everything in your life reflect these values, your fundamental driving forces? Have you went through, uncovered, dug up, and transformed all of your limiting beliefs gathered from an entire lifetime of living on this planet and being influenced by the limiting beliefs of those who raised you? Do you have a healthy, nourishing diet and stay away from chemicals and processed junk? Do you have a spiritual routine, or do you practice mindfulness and gratitude on a daily basis? Chances are you said no to some or all of those questions. The fact is, your anxiety has a root. Somewhere, somehow, it has a root, and that is normal. That is normal. And it should be liberating for you because that means you have an opportunity to uncover that root and make the changes necessary. And it's just time to do the work. To be honest with you, it's time to take ownership of your life. You deserve to be stress-free and happy. So anxiety is really just trying to align you with your best life, a life that doesn't have room for it anymore. Because guess what? Anxiety doesn't want to stick around either. It wants what's best for you, but it will show up as soon as something is off kilter, whether it's your own beliefs about yourself or your life is just not in alignment with who you truly are as a true divine being. So, whether the root lies in your internal community, your external stimulus and reality, or a chemical imbalance, whatever the source, anxiety is simply still the messenger guiding you to the places that need transformative healing. And you have the choice to figure out what it's trying to tell you. Now, this is a space for you to be honest and courageous and challenge yourself. Maybe I triggered parts of you in this video. Maybe at some point you were like, oh, I don't like this Sarah girl. Oh, I don't like what she's having to say here. I've got really bad anxiety. Damn it, I'm going to own it. That's okay. That is your journey. We are on our own different points of our journey, but I want to invite you as your coach to get curious about the places that you may have felt triggered. Get curious about what it is you're holding on to with identifying with this anxiety. Get curious. That's what we're here for, is to explore ourselves. It doesn't hurt to get curious and explore. So I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I can't wait to hear how this method works for you. Feel free to send me an email, whatever. I want to know how this works for you in the moment. And now is the time to get your workbook handy if you didn't already, and use it for further reflection on this 5-step method and to get the other secrets to living a stress-free, happy life. You guys are awesome. You're doing great. We're all in this together. You can do this. You've got this, okay? See you later.